Hey guys, Zerlin here. Got a bit of a different video for you today. I hope you like it. If you do, if you could leave a like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff, I'd really appreciate it. I'm live on Twitch pretty much every weekday. I would love to see you there, and I hope you enjoy the video. Okay, so today our topic is pretty straightforward. I want to talk to you guys about how you can win a deadlock game in the first 10 or 15 minutes of the deadlock game. So recently on Reddit, I've been a little bit obsessed with this. There is this user Bogdanox who posted some stats that he got from a bunch of aggregating a bunch of deadlock games, and I want to talk to you about them and how important the first about 15 minutes of every deadlock game is, and how easy it is for you to acquire advantages that can lead to you winning a lot more of your games. So let's start with this big image here, which is pulled from the Reddit post. I would recommend that you go check out this Reddit user and look at some of his posts about some of the stats he's gathered. There's more information there for sure. But we're going to start with just looking at this screenshot from the article he posted on Reddit. So how do you win a deadlock game in the first 10 to 15 minutes, you might be asking? Well, if we take a look at this, when is it actually over? So this shows the win rates and soul differentials at various points in a game of deadlock. And the most important thing that I want you guys to be paying attention to is this chunk here. So basically, if we are at a plus 5 to plus 10k soul advantage between 10 and 15 minutes, we get about a 75% win rate. And that's kind of what we're trying to accomplish. We want to be at a 5 to 10k soul advantage somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes. And now you might be asking, how are we going to get that advantage? So there's a lot of ways that you can accrue advantages in the early game. Obviously, the easiest ways that you can get advantages in the early game is if you just go and you kill people on the other team, right? If you get kills, that's the easiest, most straightforward way that you can get advantage, but it's also the most difficult and the least consistent. So what are the other ways that you can get advantage in the first 10 minutes of the game? There's actually a ton of them, and most of them rely on this guy right here, this clock up in the top of your screen. This is probably the most important thing for you to be looking at in the early game. We want to be keeping an eye on these timers. There's lots of important timers, and knowing when they are and how to abuse them can lead to moderate advantages throughout the early game that can stack up to getting to that 5 to 10k advantage that we're trying to accomplish. So let's get into that. So first, the first big timer is at 2 minutes. At 2 minutes, you get all of your boxes, you get all of your golden statues, and you get all of these small camps. So knowing that this is what's happening at 2 minutes, how are we going to take advantage of that to start accruing a small advantage in the beginning of the game? At 1 minute and 30, so at 1:30, we're going to push out our wave in our lanes, and you can either accrue an advantage. So one of the easiest ways that you can accrue advantage is, say you are in your right side lane. If you push out this wave at 1:30 and you take their camp, you take the enemy's camp, they can't take it anymore, and you get a bit of a soul lead. And say it's your camp, so like say it's on your side, then you push out your wave at 1:30, and then you go take your camp, and then you go take some boxes, and you loop this. So boxes respawn every 3, and the creeps respawn every 1 minute and 30. So we kind of loop this for the first 4.5 minutes of the game. We're going to loop this a couple of times, and we're going to accrue a little bit of an advantage here. We're going to assume that we're not getting any kills. Kills are the easiest way to get large advantages early on in the game, but that is volatile. It's not necessarily guaranteed. These are things that are going to be there every time that you can consistently try to take from your enemy, that you can consistently try to get advantage of. If you're getting priority on your waves and you're taking boxes and you're taking camps before the enemy, you're going to consistently get, a couple hundred souls here and there for advantage, and that's how we can start accruing advantage. The next big period of time that we want to look at is 5 minutes. So 5 minutes, buffs spawn. Buffs are not a soul advantage in themselves. Obviously, they don't give you any souls, but what they do is they allow you to do other things. So if you get buffs, you can use those buffs to threaten your opponents in the lane, to go roam and look for ganks, to fight. This is usually one of the first opportunities for there to be fights over. So you can fight over these buffs, and that can give you advantages in getting kills, and that's a more consistent way to potentially look for kills because you're not going to be under tower, right? There's a lot of ways that you can abuse people trying to go for buffs, whether you shoot them off vent, etc., or you parry them on the buff. Another thing I forgot to mention that you can be doing. So what are you going to do? So say you've killed this camp, you've killed the camp, you've taken all the boxes that are close to you, and then you're still pushing your waves and you're getting priority. What can you do? So one of the big things that you can do is you can take a look at your map. So the secondary thing that you're going to, so first you're going to look at your timer. Okay, my timer says it's 3 minutes, and we've just, like 3 minutes and 10 seconds. We've just pushed out our wave. I've done all my boxes. I've done my camp. What am I supposed to do? So one of the things that we're going to look at next is we're going to look at the map. We're going to take a look at the map, and obviously this is a map further on in the game, but imagine these camps aren't here, so you don't really see anything to do on the map camp-wise. So we're going to look for opportunities for ganks. If there is two, of the enemies that are very pushed up, maybe on the mid lane, then you can look for opportunities to go rotate to get a gank in. So you should always be vigilant looking for opportunities on the map to go and gank, and then you can take advantages that way as well. As we said before at the beginning, kills are probably the most effective way to get advantage early game. So if you can find ways to interact with other lanes to get kills, that's always good. But usually you're only going to be doing that if there's out of position enemies, and also you're kind of finished with a lot of your sort of chores, let's call them. So at 5 minutes, kind of similar to this 1:30 timer, we care about at 4:30, we want to push the wave. At 4:30, we want to push the wave so that then we can go get this buff. And priority is very important in the early game. You want to be shoving out your waves as much as possible, so that you can get to these buffs on time, so that you can do your boxes safely, you can do your camp safely. It really gives you kind of like a better position if you have priority in your lane. So what's next? At 6 minutes, this is sort of an augmentation to that first gameplay loop that we talked about. At 6 minutes, we get additional camps. We get the tier 2 camps. And these respawn every 5 minutes. So this is sort of something that you can add in addition, or if you're pushing out your waves, and then say you've taken most of the boxes and your small camp isn't up and you got some time to kill, you can go look at doing maybe a tier 2 camp and add that into your rotation. At 8 minutes, very important, the sinners spawn. Sinners are worth a lot of money. We like sinners. Sinners are very good. Check mark. We like sinners. We want to do these at 8 minutes if at all possible. So what we want is to make sure that, once again, 30 seconds ahead of time, there's going to be a wave at 7 minutes and 30 seconds. We want to push that wave out. We want to make sure that it's out, and then we can go ahead and take our sinners, or try to look towards our doubles, or even invade their sinners. The most efficient way to accrue advantage is always to take resources away from the enemy, because then that's things that they can't take. So always trying to take their sinners is good. It's not always possible. These do cost a lot of health, so it can be a potentially risky endeavor. But these are a great way to accrue a couple hundred souls of advantage very easily, very quickly, and the buffs are worth a lot as well, and they respawn every 5 minutes. We want to get these on cooldown as quickly as possible. Now, the most important timer for accruing this early game advantage, and this is why I say it's like 10 to 15 minutes, is the urn. This is the most important objective on the map when it spawns at 10 minutes. So, sinners spawn at 8, and this spawns at 10. Realistically, you only have about 1 minute and 30 seconds to do your sinners before you want to try to be, in some way, shape, or form, doing something to help the urn. Whether that is pushing out waves so that your team can be there, or being on the urn pickup to fight it. You want to be engaged in contesting the urn in some capacity. You're setting the map up for in some capacity at about 9 minutes. Honestly, you can even cross this out and only have about 1 minute to do your sinners. Somewhere starting around 9:15, 9:30. We want to start setting up the map so that we can get ready to do our urn. What that looks like is you want to push out the wave at 9:30. You want to be on the buff when it spawns, because the sin takes a few seconds to drop down. And so you want to be on the buff first, and then you want to come to the urn. So it's always buff first and then urn if it's at all possible. You can give up the buff to have priority on the urn and make them come to you, which can sometimes be advantageous. But really, we want to make sure that we're getting this first urn. It's worth about 3,000 souls when it spawns. And this is how you get a lot of that. Basically, like if you get this urn and turn it in on your team, we're basically already to that 5 to 10k. Like if you just turn in the urn and do literally nothing else, you're pretty much like right here. If you turn in the urn and then maybe get like a little bit of other advantages, you're basically right here. And even if you only turn in the urn and the game is dead even, the first urn puts you here. The first urn immediately puts you at about like a 60, like 63% win rate immediately if you just turn in the first urn. It's super, super important. It's one of the easiest ways, not easiest, it's one of the most consistent ways to accrue an advantage early on in the game. This is your number one priority, run the urn. So I want to break this into a couple of sort of loops, right? I'm going to call them advantage loops. So we talked about it a little bit, but the initial advantage loop is this right here. Right here. This is your initial advantage loop. Ways that you can accrue advantage without necessarily getting kills. So our initial loop, what we want to do is, so for the first minute and 30, the game is, I mean, there's not a lot of ways besides if your lane opponent is being dumb. There's not a lot of ways that you can really sway the lane heavily. But after about 130, that's where we're starting to look for priority. That's where we can start actually making a meaningful edge in our game to try and start making some advantage so that we can get towards our goal of being 5 to 10k ahead at somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes. So our first initial advantage loop is going to be at 130. We're going to push the wave. Then we're going to go look to either invade their camp, secure your small camp, and then do some combination of boxes, etc. All the while we are doing this at 2 minutes, we are going to keep an eye on the map to look for opportunities for out of position enemies to see if we can interact with other lanes. Kills are the easiest way to get a meaningful advantage early on in the game, but they're not consistent. You can't do it every time. This won't always be available. This initial advantage loop, this will always be available. This will be available every single game. Enemies being too far pushed up, etc., that is not always going to be available. So we're going to focus on this, but we're going to look for advantages here. Okay, so once we get to about the 5-6 minute mark, this is what I'm going to call the secondary advantage loop, which is just an addition to that initial advantage loop. Basically, we're doing the same things, more or less. We're taking our camps when it spawns. We're trying to push up waves at good timers at like 4 minutes and 30. We're trying to maintain priority in our lane so that we can be the first to go move and make actions. Ideally, you want to have priority as much as possible in this game. It's very rarely, like there are some rare exceptions. There are some high level things that you can be doing to manipulate your waves to punish people who just mindlessly take prio all the time. But generally speaking, we want priority. And when I'm talking about priority, if it's not clear, priority is when you're like, you kill all of their, because you have, your 4 creeps and they have their 4 creeps and you kill all 4 of their creeps first, then they have to now spend time killing your 4 creeps. And while they're killing your 4 creeps, you can already have gone and left and fucked off to go do camps, skip boxes, etc. While they're killing your creeps, you can go take their camp. While they're killing your creeps, you can go take boxes, if that makes sense. So next up is sort of the addition of the sinners. The sinners are just going to get pushed into this same sort of like, it's just, we're expanding our gameplay loop as time goes on. So at 8 minutes, the sinners are going to get thrown in, and now you have an additional objective. And each time something new is going to get added to this, those new things are going to be more important. And generally, so the priority of things at 8 minutes is sinners are the most valuable thing that you can be doing. If buffs aren't on the map, buffs are the most important thing that you can be doing if buffs are up, but otherwise it's going to be, so like this is like number 1, and then sinners are like number 2. Tier 2 camps are, if you can clear them efficiently, like number 3, and then it's going to be like number 4 for boxes and creeps. But boxes are easy to kill. You should always be killing boxes wherever you go. They have reasonable returns. You should be doing them anytime that you have downtime. Okay, so 10 minutes. Now we've kind of, hopefully our ideal at this point is at this 10-minute marker to be maybe like 2,000 souls up. If we're doing these loops better than our opponents and we're taking resources away from them, we should be up a couple thousand souls even without any kills. So we want to be walking into this urn with maybe a couple thousand souls to our advantage. And then we're going to look at taking this urn. This is the most important thing that we can be doing on the map when it spawns. We want to be setting up the map so that we can take the urn. Once we take the urn, we turn it in. Boom, bam. We get that Goldilocks zone of 5 to 10k, somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes. And 75% of the time, we just win the game right after that. Obviously, there's a lot more game to be played and you can make more mistakes, but this is the most replicable, most important part of the game for you to get down pat. Is this what I'm going to call the winning the game loop, the early game winning the game loop, because this will win you the game. If you do this, if you can get this down pat and you do this every game, you just win 75% of your games. Obviously, you can't control this every time, but this is the most controllable part of the game, the first 10 minutes. There's the least amount of chaos in the game at this point. This is the most simple part of the game. It only gets more complicated from here. And if we can leave this part and make this as replicable as possible and leave this part of the game with a 5 to 10k lead, then we're going to win a lot more games. This is a quick rundown of sort of this early game game-winning loop and why I think it's really important, why you should really be focusing on getting your early game down and knowing all of these early game timers. You should be playing around these timers. They're very, very important. And I think that this timer up here is like the most important dictator of who, of what you're trying to do on the map. With this, the map is like your secondary gameplay teller. Your primary is this timer up here of telling you what to do on the map. And you should be doing these things every time they pop up. If you get good at abusing these timers and knowing how to interact with them, you will very quickly see your win rate go up. And I think this is probably the most consistent way to improve your win rate, is just being better at this early game part of the game. I hope you guys liked the video. I hope this was informative. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm live on Twitch pretty regularly. I would love to see you there. And let me know if you like the content and I can do some more educational stuff in the future. Have a good one.